What are your prime directives?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
Robocop, The Last Stand is pure mayhem. This comic is cranked up to 11 out of 10, at least as far as gore, sensuality, and explosions are concerned. Just when you think it's hit the insanity peak, you're hit with a lady making comments about a robot clone guy's, well, you know what. Seriously, it goes there. But if you can embrace the wild ride, you'll have a blast with this comic, I promise. This whole shindig is an adaptation of Frank Miller's screenplay for Robocop 3, and Stephen Grant keeps all of Miller's signature touches intact. Like the previous issues, it's like diving headfirst into a Frank Miller world, a bonkers Frank Miller world, the kind that leaves you scratching your head, trying to process what you just witnessed. And hey, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Maybe. Some scenes do feel a bit wonky, with transitions that probably worked on the big screen but don't quite translate seamlessly to the comic book panels. The story is set in the future. The win is a little fuzzy, where Robocop's been slapped with the outlaw label, and the Detroit PD is history, replaced by a bunch of armed enforcers who seem to take their marching orders from OCP and only OCP. Detroit has devolved into a den of corruption and vice, with the so-called cops being as crooked as they come, while the rich keep getting richer and the poor just get stomped on even more. In this era, Robocop has become a kind of vigilante legend, a savior fighting to rescue Detroit from OCP's corporate stranglehold. Not too different from how Batman is the guardian angel of Gotham. It's a cool premise, no doubt, and Grant does an okay job conveying it. However, the only flaw is that the comic takes 2 issues to really pick up, so I would really request you to stick with us just until then, and I promise you will thank me later. Now, without further ado, let's get to the chase. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Setting up the stage for an awesome saga. The first 6 panels of the comic are scenes depicting the atrocities that Robocop has apparently been inflicting on the people of Detroit. The company is spreading propaganda that Robocop cannot be stopped or hurt, and that he has become a menace for everyone. But since there is not much of a context here, it becomes difficult to figure out what was actually happening. I mean, I had to spend a good 2 minutes to get that. Nevertheless, news reporter Jess is not happy with the way Robocop is being presented to the society. She knows that the things that the OCP-owned news channel is asking her to present are nothing less than a lie. And even though she has a job to care about, she cares about the truth and her credibility too. So, it's clear that this futuristic version of Robocop's Detroit still has people who are willing to fight for the truth. However, things have changed in the city of Detroit. The police force has been completely disbanded, and law and order is now the responsibility of OCP's armed personnel, who answer only to the company, and they have free reign with what they want to do as long as it is in line with OCP's interest. 2 of these hunt down a sex worker and ask her about the whereabouts of Robocop, but of course, she either doesn't know or would not rat Robocop out. The guards claim that the sex worker should know because apparently, when she was not laying on her back, she was walking the streets where Robocop had last been spotted. When she did not say anything of worth, they decided to put her in the truck so that they could take their time with her. You see, torture was normal for these guys, and there was no one who would dare to stop or question their authority. I am not entirely sure what Feldman, the male guard, wanted to do with the girl, but he's saying things like, "We get you in the truck, you can make all the noise you want," was rather uncomfortable. But they couldn't even begin to leave the alley as something hit the truck. Any guesses? Well, yes. Robocop had arrived to save another soul from OCP's wrath. It did not really take Robocop a lot of time to deal with the situation, and before long, he was on his way again. Meanwhile, a woman named Marie Lacassie was desperately searching for Robocop. We don't know the reason yet, but it will get cleared out in the subsequent few minutes. Now, since this is supposed to be an almost dystopian society, there are gangs known as scavengers, who, as the name suggests, are all about taking what doesn't belong to them. They chase and stop Marie, but she uses a smaller version of an EMP cannon to overpower them and make her escape. From the looks of the small device, it could have also been an acoustic weapon. You see, many of the subtle nuances in Robocop's lifestyle are reminiscent of Batman, with whom Frank Miller has a long connection. Much like the Batcave, Robocop has his secret hideout where he charges himself and comes to hide when he's not killing criminals and bad guys on the streets. Old Man Robocop is also depicted as a vigilante of sorts. Nonetheless, Old Man Robocop's Detroit is not obsessed with building Delta City. This time around, OCP wants to build something called the Liberty Towers, which is supposed to provide jobs to 1 million people. But of course, once again, innocent citizens are being pushed out of their homes. OCP's men had arrived at one such residence to forcefully evict the residents. It's not like the good lady was incapable of defending herself and her home, but she was just a middle-class woman, outnumbered and outpowered. As would be expected, Detroit's vigilante, Old Man Robocop, arrived at the scene and threw the men out, but they had an Ed 209 at their disposal, which they put to good use. However, Robocop is known to have taken down enforcement droids such as the super powerful Ed 2000X, so taking down another Ed 209 was not much of a task for him. One strike after another, Ed 209 was dismantled into pieces and sent the scumbags home with nothing. Interestingly enough, this time around, Old Man Robocop did not have to take down OCP. He only had to delay the construction of Liberty Towers because the company was losing money by the minute. Financially, OCP was close to a disaster. After a small adventure, Robocop came to his humble abode, but found Marie there. How did she find him? Well, she realized that he would have a power source. Since the whole area had been blacked out for years, it was not hard to isolate the only source of electricity. He was not threatened by her, but still asked her to leave for her own safety. Nonetheless, she was not someone who could be easily scared. Robocop asked her what she wanted, and she simply said that she had too many questions for him, which is where the first issue ends. Robocop is getting ready to fall so that he can rise back up. So, in the next issue of Robocop Last Stand, we've got Marie and Robocop having a little heart-to-heart. She even takes off his helmet, which shows that he does, in fact, trust her. And he finally answers the big question about why he despises OCP so much. His beef with them? They didn't ask for his permission before turning him into the metallic wonder he is. Basically, they messed with him without asking, and he's not too thrilled about it. He says that he hates his present condition, and that he hates OCP, even more for making him what he is. Marie, on the other hand, is all about the praise for Robocop. She's calling him a marvel, a superhero, but Robocop's kinda like, you gotta get out of here because OCP's gonna come after you. In fact, he did lose his former partner Lewis because OCP killed her. He thinks that anyone who comes too close to him gets killed, but guess what? She decides to stay put. Brave move. Meanwhile, the news is still spewing all these lies about Robocop being a killing machine, and one reporter is making a fuss peddling lies to the public. OCP's security steps in and shuts her up. Then, they cut to a commercial for an attitude adjustment clinic where they've got some kid hooked up to a head device, blabbering about how well behaved he is now. Classic OCP propaganda, yes, but there's more to it. The facility is a hotbed for psychological and physiological torture and trauma. Over at OCP headquarters, Marie lures an Ed 209 into a garage, and Mr. Holzgang, the lawyer from Robocop 2, shows up, dealing with a bunch of angry employees who just got the boot. He's on his way to that attitude adjustment clinic we saw in the commercial, and guess who's running it? Dr. Fax, who's been sprung from jail to handle this clinic. She's got a side gig going on too, involving Bertha and some intense interrogation tactics to squeeze info about Robocop. Bertha was the same woman from Cadillac Heights who Robocop had saved in the previous issue. Just to give you some more perspective, Fax was the same psychologist who was responsible for the Robocop 2 project in the movie of the same name. She obviously had her own issues, and was later used as a scapegoat. We recently covered Frank Miller's version of Robocop 2, another comic of 12 issues, where Fax's character is named Margaret Love, who serves as the main antagonist in the story. Coming back to Old Man Robocop, Fax and the OCP goons threaten that they'll kill Robocop. To be honest, he was functioning at just 67% efficiency. Now that might be good enough for him, but Robocop's system had not been taken care of in more than a year, and I am talking both software and hardware. Nevertheless, Robocop defeated his adversaries, and a call to Japan was made to use Otomo in Detroit. Now, Tokyo expressed grave concerns about using the latest Otomo in a place as heavily populated as Detroit. But who is Otomo? Alright, so in the movie Robocop 3, we saw the first Otomo, and it's not your average android. He is a humanoid robot with super strength, speed, and reflexes. Furthermore, it comes with serious Japanese heat too, a katana and the skills to wield it better than a samurai. But that's not all. The Otomo also has an offensive feature that serves as the last desperate resort to take down an enemy. If you beat it, it goes boom with a miniature nuclear device, something along the lines of what a Predator does. In the movie, the first Otomo is sent to Detroit, where it has a meet and greet with the OCP's CEO. Close to the end, Robocop has to fight multiple Otomos. So yeah, that's that. So anyway, our gang, Robocop, Marie, the reprogrammed Ed 209, and Bertha. They make an escape through the sewer tunnels to Robocop's hideout. Marie's all about giving Robocop a complete makeover and upgrade, but things take a dramatic turn. She and Bertha get into a heated argument, thinking that Robocop is powered down. Marie's not thrilled that the Cadillac Heights neighborhood is kind of using Robocop to fight their battles for them, but Bertha's got a comeback. She suggests that Marie's master plan involves making Robocop fall in love with her, and that's a whole other level of cruelty to herself and to Robocop. However, our cyborg cop is a sneaky little piece of work. He has been eavesdropping on the whole showdown. He decides to unplug himself and make a quiet exit, leaving the two ladies in their dispute. Meanwhile, the news is spinning a wild tale about how OCP successfully defended against Robocop's attack, with no casualties. Total fabrication, of course. Inside OCP's HQ, things are going south. A recently sacked employee takes a fatal leap from the building just as a mysterious Japanese stranger arrives and heads straight to the chairman's office, passing through a wave of those dreaded pink slip letters. The issue wraps up with a little surprise for Dr. Fax herself. She gets the boot with an employment termination notice. The menace called Otomo. Alright, so Dr. Fax is in a bit of a tight spot. She's trying to sweet-talk Johnson into giving her job back, even tossing in a sexual proposition. But Johnson's got that smug grin and turns her down cold. She loses her cool, insisting that they can't take down Robocop without her. Johnson's not impressed in the slightest. As she's having her little fit, Bassett, the ex-head of security, steps up and offers a way in. Fax bites and agrees to go along with him. Now, inside OCP, the big shots are cooking up their grand plan. They want to own and run a whole city, which basically means the privatization of government, and they're not happy that the Cadillac Heights rebels are throwing a wrench into their scheme. That's when Otomo rolls in, the hired assassin from Kanemitsu in Japan. He's got one job, take out Robocop, but this one job is probably more difficult than performing 1,000 at once. Before he can skedaddle, Bassett and Fax show up, with Bassett packing a massive explosive vest as a bargaining chip, but Otomo's not one to dawdle. He snatches that detonator from Bassett and floors him with a single brutal punch. Fax, well, she's back to her old tricks, flipping sides and clinging to Otomo, swearing she can help with the Robocop situation. Fax spills the beans to Otomo about what makes Robocop tick. It's not just the fancy machinery, it's the traces of good old Alex Murphy still in there. She's got a plan to get Murphy's attention and throw him off balance. How? By putting innocent folks in danger. She figures that'll tick him off and make him act recklessly. Plus, she lets Otomo in on a little secret. Robocop's soft spot is anyone messing with kids, something that Fax would regret later. So, Otomo, all ninjaed up, slips through the city shadows, plants a bomb in a building, and sets it off. The fire department shows up, but OCP's rep blocks their way, saying they can't respond to this fire because the people in this block didn't pay their fire protection tax. Two of the firefighters aren't having it, and they get fired right on the spot. The standoff is getting intense until, guess who shows up? Robocop, tearing the door off the fire truck and smashing through the OCP blockade so the firefighters can do their job. One of the buildings is where Bertha's old lady lives. Bertha's desperate to help, but the firefighters hold her back, saying it's too risky. Of course, Robocop's all business and asks for her mom's location and storms into the third floor of the building to rescue her. He gets the job done, drops the old lady out the window to the waiting firefighters, and that's when things get really spicy. An attack helicopter swoops in, chasing Robocop to the roof. Inside the chopper, none other than Otomo. He kicks the OCP pilot to the curb, takes control, and starts blasting away at our metal hero. Now we're talking some high-octane action. Robocop latches onto one of the copter's skids, and Otomo can't shake him. The chopper does a wild spin before crashing right into another building. Miraculously, but not surprisingly, Robocop survives in a pile of rubble, and a little girl urges him to get back on his feet. She's got no family, no home, and no one to protect her except Robocop. So, he takes her under his wing, trying to keep her safe, while OCP's ground forces open fire on him. Meanwhile, Otomo's back in the game, and the pursuit continues. Robocop, a bit dizzy, stumbles upon Eisner's garage, where he's got some friends and allies. With OCP hot on his tail, he asks for the car they've been fixing up for him. The little girl insists on coming along, fearing that if OCP gets their hands on her, they will drag her to that attitude adjustment clinic, and she'd rather meet her maker. Robocop knows that dying is no picnic, so he makes her buckle up and floors it, bursting out the garage and breaking through OCP's lines. That's where the third issue ends. A new lease of life and power. The car chase is still in full swing as Robocop takes OCP's troops on a wild ride through Cadillac Heights. Up in the buildings, Bertha's barking out orders to other residents. They're tossing bags of garbage and scattering caltrops in front of the oncoming OCP vehicles, turning the streets into a real obstacle course. Robocop's got his hands full with Otomo. There's gunfire blazing, and Robocop finally nails Otomo, sending him flying up and over the car. But the action doesn't stop there. Now, a big truck from the passenger side is aiming to T-bone Robocop's ride. And just when you thought it couldn't get crazier, an OCP helicopter swoops in, forcing Robocop to seek refuge in an abandoned building. But the wooden floor in the building doesn't stand a chance against the car's weight, and the whole thing collapses, taking the car down with it. Robocop and the little girl he's protecting make a run for it through the sewers, aiming for that elusive escape. It's a nail-biting chase through the urban jungle of Robocop's world. So, things are getting intense at OCP. The top dogs are fuming over the death toll from the night's chaos. They lay down the law and order Fax and Otomo to hit the road, saying they're both fired. Otomo, that stone-cold killer, shuts the door behind them before putting 2 of the execs down. Fax takes control of the situation, revealing that she's got a little understanding with Otomo. Then she goes and shoots the old man, claiming she can't bottle up her emotions. Of course, all 3 of them die. She rings up security to report the 3 suicides. Yeah, right. Back in the underground action, Robocop and the little girl are trudging through the sewers. She's curious about what he is, but then Robocop starts glitching out, stuttering, dropping parts, and finally taking a nosedive into the murky water. It looks pretty grim until the reprogrammed Ed 209 comes to the rescue. Meanwhile, over at Bertha's bar, they're wondering where Robocop vanished. 2 OCP employees strut in, but Bertha isn't having it. She refuses to serve them. When they try to flex their muscle, the whole bar turns on them and boots them out. Just as Robocop emerges from a manhole cover, seeing his sorry state, Bertha and the crew decide to lend a hand. They whisk him back to Eisner's, and Marie insists on doing repairs. She's adamant that Bertha gets him a new heart. The team works their magic, and even though all they can find is a Kenomitsu heart, they manage to patch him up, complete with a new chest plate and all. The issue closes with Robocop, freshly repaired by his loyal buddies. Now, this was the end of the 4th issue. Clearly, the stage is set for Robocop to take the lead against OCP and the mess that is called Otomo. Old man Robocop has been through hell and has come back better and more advanced. Is it a love story? Otomo captures the first page of the comic, where he's ruining a rather terrible Robocop replica, cause why not? After Robocop's repairs are finished, he goes into a frenzy and does something extremely unexpected. Well, he goes straight after the girl he had been protecting for so long. Something was wrong, and his newly updated scanning software could pick it up. He picks up the girl by her hair and punches her face, smashing it, to reveal that she was, in fact, a robot bomb sent by OCP to take care of Robocop. Well, that could not be right. You see, if they could go to such lengths, it is not unimaginable that they must have set a tracker and other devices to know Robocop's movements and just about everything else about the cyborg protector of Detroit. And boy oh boy, was he correct. Robocop and Marie make a run for it almost immediately. I mean, they were in grave danger, but more importantly, Robocop knew that now a battle was on the cards. So basically, the walls were quickly closing in, and Robocop was preparing for a battle. Robocop asked Marie to stay away from the battle, and she agreed. After all, she was no hero, you see. It wasn't before long that Robocop found himself surrounded by several choppers, each being flown by an Otomo. Robocop did all he could to take down the humanoid bots, but failed to save Marie, who lost her life after one of the Otomos shoots her in the head, obliterating half of it. Robocop once again went enraged and unleashed his righteous wrath on the Otomos, but they managed to pull his cords, quite literally, leaving him unconscious and defenseless. Next thing we know, an officer from the rehab arrived at the scene and took Robocop along with him. Meanwhile, Fax gets a new player to fight Robocop and also gets hold of Marie's disc containing vital information about the cyborg cop. The comic ends with Robocop lying on an operating table, in his senses but unable to move. And to make things worse than they already are, Cadillac Heights is deemed to be razed in a matter of 3 hours, irrespective of whether residents are there or not. So you know that the next 3 hours are going to pack high-octane action, and things would move really fast. This issue is like a bullseye for Robocop fans. It's got all the goods: action, suspense, those quirky one-liners, and yeah, loads of bloody, gory violence. Not for the faint of heart, but if you've got the stomach for it, you'll love it. Stephen Grant's got a knack for nailing Miller's script, and we all know Miller penned some great stuff, but it's just what the doctor ordered for this story. This ain't your run-of-the-mill tale about politics and corporate greed. No, this is an all-out war, a battle between the community and the big bad corporation, using tech as their weapon of choice. You can practically feel the struggle of Cadillac Heights. It might not be the swankiest neighborhood, but it's where folks call home, and they're not about to let corporate greed kick them to the curb. This issue serves up a gritty, tech-fueled showdown you won't want to miss. OCP is finally taken care of, once and for all. OCP's in for a rude awakening when the blue casket arrives. They tear Robocop apart, piece by piece, into a million pieces. It seemed that Robocop's journey had finally come to an end, that the old man had reached the point of literally no return. However, a techie pops those discs into the OCP mainframe. What happens next? Well, it's a resurrection act, and Marie, who'd stashed her mind in those discs, comes back to life. She dives headfirst into rebuilding Robocop, starting from scratch. He's not the old-school cyborg anymore. He's something fresh out of the box. Marie also fulfills her dream of crafting a new android body for herself because, hey, she's always wanted to care for the guy. This way, she could have worked with him and could have spent her entire life with the ex-cyborg cop. But not all good dreams come to life, and it initially seemed that even Marie wasn't going to come back. I'll get to that in a bit. So, Robocop's back, and he's got his groove on again. But he has gotten a serious upgrade this time around. He can fly. Yes, you heard that right. Marie had ensured that Robocop got mechanical wings. He busts out of OCP's clutches, but Madame Fax isn't having any of it. She orders a full-blown purge of the OCP mainframe, thinking that'll zap Marie as well. But surprise, surprise, Marie ain't fading into the void. She slips into her new android body. So yes, we have a Robocop and Robo-Marie, or Miss Robocop or Robo-Lover, whatever you want to call her. Things are getting really interesting in this tech-heavy thriller. This issue, much like the previous one, is a Robocop fan's dream. You've got the action, the suspense, and the dialogue that keeps you in the thick of things. And of course, there's that signature Robocop touch. Good old ultra-violence that'll blow your mind. Robocop has a new ally. Robocop is hunting down Otomo like it's nobody's business. He is now able to shoot fireballs, grenades, and whatnot from his right arm, just the way we always wanted this cyborg cop to be. Of course, Otomo is getting super pissed off because he cannot do much about it, so he quits the chopper and jumps down to confront Robocop in a one-on-one battle. Not a wise move, I would say. Marie also gave his cyborg crush claws for fingernails. This is getting better by the minute. Fax finally goes to see what was up with Marie, but is shocked to find out that Marie managed to survive. Robo-Marie tries to take out Fax by strangling her, but changes her mind and decides to go a bit more wild with her. So she uses Fax's own machines to rip her apart, just as she had done Robocop. Meanwhile, Robocop and Otomo's battle is raging on. Both the droids are clearly the best in their class. Otomo uses his ninja abilities to take Robocop down, but Robocop uses his sheer American brute force to stand his ground. He pounds and pounds Otomo until his head is turned to a pulp, but Marie remotely helped Robocop, and as I had mentioned earlier, the Otomos exploded to create a mini nuclear reaction, but old man Robocop could stand even that blow. You know, Stephen Grant doesn't exactly hog the spotlight in this one. It seems most of his work here was in giving Ozetkin the lowdown on how to orchestrate all the action. Sure, there might not be a ton of words, but boy, is there a whole lot happening. Things are charging full speed ahead toward the grand finale. Robocop, OCP, and those cyborg gizmos all duking it out. If that's Grant's doing, then hats off to him, because you can actually follow the chaos in the middle of all those explosions and flying body parts. But let's talk about Ozetkin. The guy's an art wizard. He's got this knack for cranking out the raw, gritty visuals that put a smile on any fan's face. He's got the whole package, and he delivers the goods. A new beginning. Now, the interesting thing about the final issue of the comic is that it feels like a one-shot, as it tells a whole new story. You must have realized that after Fax deleted the entire database of OCP, years of research and data were gone. Even the old man was dead. OCP is basically finished. With that, the so-called OCPD is also gone. So who would take care of Detroit now? Of course, we have Robocop, but he can't really do everything alone now, can he? Well, taking advantage of the situation, the scavengers take control of Detroit. But, as would be expected, Robocop stands up to them and challenges their false authority. To make matters worse, they find a huge trash of high-end weaponry that can do some critical damage to Robocop. However, Bertha, our dear friend, she contacts the good old Sarge from the movies and implores him to get back to duty, to help Robocop, and save Detroit from the menace called scavengers. It doesn't take long for Sarge to concede to Bertha, but he doesn't come alone. He gets the Force with him. The scavengers find it difficult to fight back, although a huge and bloody fight does take place. In the end, the new Detroit Police Department itself comes to life, and so does Old Man Robocop, ever ready to protect his fellow citizens. Marvelous verdict. Frank Miller has got a history with the Robocop franchise. His initial Robocop 2 draft? Poof, didn't happen. I mean, it did, but it was heavily changed to the extent that there was frankly nothing Frank Miller about it. Robocop 3, they tweaked it so much that Miller threw in the towel on screenplays. But boom, studios snagged the rights to Miller's tale, and thanks to Stephen Grant, we're finally getting a taste of what could have been. In this story, the cops are gone, Robocop's got a bad rap, and a shady security force is tearing the city apart, all in the name of order. With a title like Last Stand, you know Robocop ain't about to retire to a beach somewhere. He's sticking to his guns. in dishing out justice, just on a shoestring budget now. Korkut Ozetkin's art and Michael Garland's colors deliver that cool 70s futuristic vibe. It's got that gritty, desolate feel, and you can practically smell the dystopia. Now, action junkies, don't get too amped up. The action's a bit sparse, but when it drops, it's well executed. Robocop's in his element, mowing down everything in his path, man or machine. The action's on point, and Garland's colors paint the city in that moody twilight look, like it's on its last legs. But this comic takes its sweet time getting the party started. Overall, I would give this one a solid 7 out of 10, and maybe throw in an extra 0.5 because I love Robocop. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.